For Monday, August the 18th at 6:30. Can I ask for a roll call, please?
Commissioner Armentrout,
Present.
Commissioner Peterson,
He's absent.
Commissioner Hirsch,
Present.
Commissioner Hartley,
Present.
Commissioner Yeager,
Present.
Vice Chairman Geisinger,
Present.
Chairwoman Schott.
Present.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. Tonight we have a presentation by Wally and Thomas, I am told. And Wally, if you'd like to go ahead and start, floor is yours.
I'm glad to. I'm going to the mic here so everybody can hear me. I could avoid beating it up. Really, my part of the presentation is going to be covering the memo that you got on you should have on top of your desk over the PowerPoint. And I'll kind of just go through it a little bit. But we've already talked about the retreat on the 21st of June. There was a cohesive and not haphazard vision for the area. Also ideas about what a balanced development might look like in terms of commercial, professional, older adult, transitional housing, environmental, community recreation center. So basically, at this point, the following items seem worthy of additional discussion. The Big Woods East and Big Woods West references in the comp plan should be combined into one section, perhaps Big Woods North, which will provide guidance for the future development of the existing commercial parcels on the north side of Victory Boulevard, as well as the R1 zoned areas north of the commercial zoned areas. Currently not defined, is not defined as part of the Big Woods in the current comprehensive plan. The Planning Commission may wish to elaborate on these distinctions, and one that came to our mind was maybe Big Woods North residential, Big Woods North commercial. They're both north of Victory, but those might be some alternates the Planning Commission may want to consider. As I said at the top, the development styles should be cohesively planned, more so like a master plan community than piecemeal development. This may require, particularly when we get to the point of the zoning, a joint effort by all stakeholders, being the city, the Economic Development Authority, and of course the numerous private property owners. Number 3, any traffic into R1 zoned areas, Big Woods North, off of Yorktown Road, need to be focused towards existing intersections and require a traffic impact analysis. I would actually extend that to R-zoned areas that might be accessed off of Victory Boulevard in the future. So I would consider putting Victory Boulevard into that area. We, of course, want to limit access into R1 zones off Victory to, where existing intersections exist. And of course, we'll do a traffic impact analysis. And looking at the comments, it seemed like the research and development district should be eliminated in favor of general commercial zoning. Now, this is just a comp plan we're talking about at first. There's a lot listed in this paragraph. As the City Council is given the Planning Commission the responsibility to address details, we start with the comp plan, and once that portion is done, we move to the zoning ordinance revisions needed to support the comprehensive plan. It's our hope tonight that after our discussion, Thomas and I and Crystal, the staff in general, will have enough comment from the Planning Commission to come back to you in September for really the Planning Commission's public hearing, at which point we could open it up to property owners to come and speak as well. After that, we'll do a joint work session with the City Council, maybe in October, November, and then at that point we should should pretty much know where we are with the comp plan, and we can run that through the public hearing process for all the proposed amendments. That's all I've got. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Like I said, this memo is just sort of to get you thinking about certain things. And Thomas is going to give us a PowerPoint on the area in question and the current permitted uses in comp plan language.
And one of the things that I think is really important here is this is a big picture. This is everybody in the community. It's a big picture. It's what do we want to see this parcel looking like cohesively, like you said, as part of our community. It is the main corridor into the city, and we want to make sure that we don't have, like you and I have discussed previously, Thomas, a lot of misinformation out there. We're just talking big picture type of things.
Right.
Right.
Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission, I'm sure you've had an opportunity to look at my PowerPoint, but this is more or less what was presented at the June 21st retreat. Some modifications that'll make it a little easier for our use tonight. So keeping in mind the points Wally just made, and the takings away from the retreat and our discussion last month, trying to galvanize tonight's discussion. What I want to do is kind of run through this PowerPoint and frame it in the sense of tonight's discussion, what we've taken from comments made at the retreat, what we've taken from comments last month, and where I think, at least in our mind, where we think you may be going into the discussion. Feel free to stop me and ask questions anytime, but if it's more productive that I roll through it, being mindful of your time and we can go back, that's not a problem. This PowerPoint kind of sets the stage for tonight, so going back and forth is not an issue. It's framed that way and it's set up that way, so we can actually use it tonight. This is the current zoning map, something you all are very familiar with. This is the total of the north side of Victory Boulevard. This is everything west of Wythe Creek Road, south of Yorktown Road, and north of Victory. And you see the zoning districts there, correlates with the colors on the screen. But for the purpose of our discussion, we are focusing on the portion in green of the north side of Victory, which does not include B2 zoning, it does not include R3 multifamily zoning, and it does not include the RS single-family residence. It is just the three districts on the screen at this point. To the north, which Wally mentioned we may want to reference in the comprehensive plan, and this update we're discussing as Big Woods North residential. Right now it's just looped in with some of the central planning district language, which is not necessarily an issue, but what we're going to focus on is more or less the amendments and the rewrite of the portion of the comp plan that focuses on these properties north of Victory Boulevard. So you have the R1 single family residential zone parcels there in orange, the research and development district in light blue, that is the current Big Woods West reference, and then the general commercial parcels or Big Woods East. Those, of course, some of them are owned by the EDA. They have frontage to Victory, as do some of the parcels currently zoned research and development. As you know, we've removed the language from the code that speaks to a planned unit development. So mixed use, even though it's I'll say a flavor of the conversation, the language, the permissive language in our code, we have taken out. So when we talk about master plan or mixed use, we don't have to think of it in the sense of existing development that took advantage of that language. We're talking about cohesive development, strategic in this portion of the city comprehensively. A comprehensive plan is just that. It's a guiding document for decades out. It's a vision. It's not this is the plan, this is exactly how it must be done and when it must be done. It's simply a vision, and I want us to keep that in mind. This is our area of focus. I'll breeze through it really quick. It's what I just had outlined in green, but you can see the areas. It's 210 acres. It's 39 different parcels. It is not 39 different property owners, because some folks or some companies own multiple properties on that side. The EDA, of course, has a number of properties on that side. And just for context of how much property we're talking about, Legacy is just about 100 acres, the developed portion of Legacy. So we've talked about this a lot. This is the Research and Development District in blue, and here is how the comprehensive plan currently speaks to it. You all have had a chance to see this and, of course, read this information. This is the current, what we refer to as Big Woods West. Well, because it's on the west side of the Big Woods, north of Victory Boulevard. We now know that the south side of Victory, it's developed. So, those references are going to change by virtue of Legacy's build-out the next time we amend the comprehensive plan. So we can forget about those references, focus on the north side and how you all envision those amendments reading as we go to our meeting in September, then a joint work session with council, and then that's when we really hit the chalkboard and start getting this written and really take these amendments to public hearing for consideration. This is the portion R&D. This was the thought decades ago, and I mean 2 or closer to 3. R&D was, research and development was up and coming, light industrial, technology warehousing, some spec warehousing. That was the next big thing. It's just never really taken off. So we still have that current underlying zoning. We still have the references in the comprehensive plan. And I will go to the uses. These are permitted uses. Now, this is what comes from the zoning ordinance, but we have yet to see a piece of R&D property developed for the intended purpose. And what our takeaway from the conversations we've had in regards to the R&D is that time has kind of passed that language, and we need to look forward and see what that modification looks like. And if that is continuing the general commercial, the future land use through the existing R&D zoning, then that's what we need to get towards in refining the language that currently exists in the comp plan. We would more or less just remove the research and development language. And then, of course, what follows that, as mentioned again in Wally's memo, is comp plan first, then we amend the zoning ordinance to support the comprehensive plan. This is the general commercial zoning districts. There is some use of this property, primarily that behind, the Parish Thrift Shop, Mr. C's. There are some existing uses there. They have been there for a long time. Other than that, we know that the EDA parcels sit vacant, and the others behind them are wooded and undeveloped. The current general commercial district is referenced as Big Woods East in the comprehensive plan, and it basically, I just regurgitated the language. It's undeveloped, it's wooded, it's on Victory. And the GC zoning, it allows similar uses to that of B1 and B2. There's some language there where it says these are the uses allowed, these are the uses basically not allowed, which would be permitted in B2. That's, again, language we can clean up once we get to the zoning ordinance if necessary, but right now, keeping our focus here. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. It mentions all of them permitted in the B2, subject to conditions of the B2. So imagine a storage yard. A storage yard has that long list of conditions that one must adhere to. If not, these below are permitted by CUP. We just went through an amendment of the conditional use permit language. It was approved by council. This is and will continue to be zoned commercially, a major CUP, a minor CUP. It's cohesive. It matches up. It doesn't necessarily make any of the language, existing or future language, conflicting. If it does, or if there's redundancy, we'll fix it. These are the permitted uses in the B2 district. This is really just more for context. We're not talking about the B2 district right now. This is the B1 language. The only reason I included these references is because, of course, it's referenced in the zoning ordinance for permitted uses in the general commercial district. This is that portion we saw earlier. R1 single-family residence. This is how these properties are currently zoned. Our focus tonight is very much, I think that what's direct to Victory, the research and development district, the general commercial, how we may want to marry up that language. This language, I think the amendments are a little easier in that maybe we pull this portion of the R1 district. Even if it's duplicative, we address it as, Big Woods North residential, and kind of more or less copy and paste the language that references this. That currently sits in the central planning district language in the comp plan, which is here. It's single-family residential. It's been that way. And you can see the permitted uses there, of course, a single-family residence, churches, parks, playgrounds, pretty much what you see in single-family residential districts throughout the city, unless something's there that got a conditional use permit or conditional rezoning. So this concludes this portion of the presentation. Of course, this being zoned R1 residential, a developer and these private property owners have had for decades and have right now an opportunity to develop these properties as single-family residential developments. And that may be open space, it may be a conventional subdivision, but that option is there for them now. Of course, a lot of it, if not basically all of it that I've shown pictured, remains wooded. We can pretty confidently say that there are portions of it that are wet. How much of it, we don't know. No one knows unless they get a wetland delineation prepared by a professional wetland delineator. Throwing that plug in there. Laura tries to teach me things, but some of her stuff goes over my head a little bit sometimes. No, so a lot there is unknown, and it will be unknown until somebody more or less comes to us with a plan or the willingness to develop or sell. So, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I think, Madam Chair, this is probably a good place to start the conversation, looking at the research and development language. One, do we want to keep the language? if the thought, the consensus of the planning commission is no, then we move on from this slide pretty fast and we go right to the general commercial language and, do we extend that to the west and, combine that language in the comp plan into one that speaks to Big Woods North commercial. I'm happy to take any questions at this time if you have any.
Anybody have any questions?
How many different owners are,
I can't give you the exact number. I have actually had maps with the owners. I don't have them loaded tonight. I would say it's probably mid-20s, maybe low 30s, because, we corporately, the EDA, I think they have 9 parcels. The general commercial parcels that are cleared, and they own 1 parcel right in the middle of the research and development district is an EDA parcel. But then the larger, 3 of the larger R1 parcels, they're owned, it's in different company names, but it goes back to the same address, so I think it's just different LLCs, but I think it's the same folks. The Moore family owns quite a few parcels. Mid-Atlantic and their team, Buddy and Heath Spencer and those folks own quite a few parcels. So yes, it's 39 parcels, but it's not that many. It's not that many owners. I don't have that number off the top of my head, and I'm sorry I don't.
no, I was just curious how many, how many people are trying.
I would say it's a couple dozen who are, I would say, they are the stakeholders in that they own this property, whether it's the EDA. The city, we do own 1 parcel. It fronts Victory. It's that very little pie-shaped parcel, the probably smallest parcel over there is city-owned. And then there are a few other folks that over there. The Firth family currently owns 2 parcels. So it's not 39 parcels, 39 owners.
One of the things that I would say that we heard for those that attended the retreat, the joint retreat with City Council, was the fact that, and we heard it even from City Council, that the R&D district that we're talking about, that starts this off, really doesn't, at the time it made sense, it doesn't make sense anymore. And, taking small bites of the apple, as Wally would say. And, that is one of the areas I think that the people that attended that or were able to attend it could hear that, and that was an area that was an opportunity that could be changed, because it just doesn't fit that anymore. And especially after, Thomas, you said it's been about 20, 30 years. In that time frame, it just doesn't fit that. So I'd love to hear, if we start off with this, that you have up, what the other commissioners' thoughts were on this area.
I think it should be all general commercial, and it makes it easier to market as well, and land that the city does own. And I would end it there, though. I don't believe in going into making any type of residential. So that's just where I stand on it.
Just to clarify, Thomas, there is currently existing residential to jump. We're just defining it, the name of it in the comp plan, correct? That's
Right. We're just going to make the reference in the
Right.
comp plan that this single-family residentially zoned property, we would make the reference as Big Woods North Residential, and then
Right.
we more or less copy and paste that language that exists in the Central Planning District language, and that we're
Right.
talking about 2 different things when we talk about Big Woods North. The residentially zoned property and the commercially zoned property. That reference is the same whether the will of the Planning Commission and ultimately City Council is to keep it R&D and general commercial. We can still combine that language to read Big Woods North Commercial. If it is I'll say grouped and the R&D language done away with, the reference is the same, Big Woods North Commercial, but we only have one, we would eventually only have one underlying zoning district, which would be general commercial, but that comes with amendments to the zoning ordinance, some depending on what uses come of this. That's the kind of third part of this discussion. And then, of course, probably would be the largest redistricting we've considered probably since Legacy, which has been over a decade at this point. So those steps in the process will come, but tonight's discussion, of course, is what do we want the comprehensive plan language to
Right.
look like? And Mr. Hartley's comments are noted, and if that's where the planning commission ends, that's what we'll bring to you in September, and let you get a look at the language we craft.
To me, if you're just cleaning up the language, you're not doing anything different as far as the residential area. You're just stipulating that this is Big Woods North. That's what it's classified as. For the comprehensive plan, that certainly seems logical to me.
That's exactly right, Madam Chair. This language being the Big Woods West language and the Big Woods East language, we would marry those to
Right.
read as Big Woods North Commercial, and it would be the general commercial language.
I would just also ask that we make a decision tonight on whether we want to focus additional subdivision developments, focus them towards existing intersections and require traffic.
I agree 100%. Traffic is important, and I do like the fact of making that, incorporating Victory Boulevard in there like you suggested. To me, that just makes sense. But I'm just one voice, so I'd love to hear what everybody else has to say.
I think if we can use Wally's memo, as a conversation guide and look at number one, which is those references of Big Woods East and West.
Sure.
That's the conversation, the R&D and combining that language. And once we have consensus and direction from you there, we go right to number two, which is cohesive development. Then we can go to number three, then we go to number four. Number four marries up well with number one. That probably won't warrant a lot of conversation, but as clear as direction as you can give us, it puts us in a good position over these next few weeks to make that something you can read, and that's the amended language that we'll bring to you and the public next month.
Okay. So let's start with one then.
I mean, to me personally, it makes sense to simplify
Right.
the commercial area as well, and generalize it. And I think the R&D area has kind of, that time has passed, that the general commercial sense to me.
Thomas, are there any uses in the current R&D zoning that we would want to migrate into the classification of the general commercial?
It's a really good question. These are the permitted uses. Banks and financial institutions would probably be one that would be permitted, or depending on the level of photograph copying, it may be something that's permitted. There's a few there that would marry up. There are some that may not, and that's the big, that's the intense uses that the R&D was written for that haven't showed up. So I think it's definitely a good question, and I think we dive deep into that when we get to the zoning ordinance, when we say, what are the permitted uses, and at that time we bring you, just like we are tonight, these permitted uses in these districts back, and we say, okay, here are the permitted uses, here's the general commercial language. Is this what you want it to read? Is it broad enough? Is it too broad? And should we include uses currently permitted in the R&D language? If so, what are they? And that's our opportunity for doing basically exactly what you just asked. But yes, there are some uses currently permitted in the R&D that would be permitted in GC, and then of course there are some that are not.
One thing that sticks out to me as far as being the absolute worst thing to put there, especially for traffic, is any type of school. Nothing is going to generate traffic worse than a school, any type. And so I would be in full favor of taking that out. I mean, especially for right there, for what everything we're going through now. I mean, that is the worst thing, in my opinion, that could go there.
Yeah, and like I say, Mr. Hartley, the point is well taken. But that, that's when we get, that's the zoning ordinance revision.
Right, absolutely.
So, now the question is, what is the most appropriate step to take as far as the comp plan is concerned? Is that continuing the general commercial, just the language more or less that technically reads for Big Woods East, and that is general commercial B1 and B2. But the comprehensive plan is the vision. It's an umbrella. It's a guide. So we can trim down the permitted uses in that district once we get to the zoning ordinance. But the question is, does that underlying zoning give us a solid foundation to build on for that portion of the city at the time? That time may be a year from now, that time may be 15 years, it may be 20, but that's what we're tasked with, and that's why we have a comprehensive plan.
And we reevaluate that every 5 years.
Right.
And it's that blueprint for the city and
That's
how we
right.
want it to look. Right. So do we want to take these one at a time and just as they have suggested, start off with item 1, have some discussion, and then go forward 2, 3, 4?
I guess I would throw out there, are there any objections to any of these? I'm actually in favor of all 4 of these. They seem to make good sense and could consolidate our discussion unless there's an objection to any single one, which we could discuss separately.
I'm in agreement with that. I think all 4.
I do want to make a point if I can, and I don't want to be mindful of the Planning Commission's time, but your comments about the uses that are allowed G1 in general commercial or R&D or not, again, the CUP language that you all worked on and City Council ultimately passed, this will continue to remain zoned commercial. Doesn't matter if it's general commercial or research and development. So, that out that a conditional use permit process provides is still available. So if it's not a use specifically, permitted, folks will still have that opportunity to come ask you for a CUP. So I just thought that was worth noting.
Unless we prohibit it.
Unless it's specifically prohibited, yes.
I'm in agreement with you. I think all 4 of them make sense. Again, we're not drilling down in this. It's a blueprint. All 4 of them make sense. For clarity, I do like the incorporation of a traffic impact analysis, including Victory Boulevard, because that is well needed. So I'm in agreement with all 4.
I would just like to add that I am eager to, it seems like a good preliminary step, but I'm also eager to get to the phase where we get some community participation, some
Correct.
public feedback, and particularly some of the property owners, and get engaged with them and get some feedback from them to get some better guidance. So I do look at this as a preliminary direction that makes sense.
Right.
And one of the things that Thomas and I have discussed is a way to engage the public, getting the word out, so people can come out and tell us this is their community, what they want there. That's important. Making sure we get ahead of the information, making sure people feel comfortable coming to us. That's important. That's important to me. And so I think staff has a very good way of getting that information out. Plus, it has to be advertised legally in the newspaper. So it is a requirement. And so it is, they have a good way
Well,
to proceed.
and along those lines with, surveying and listening to the public here, the members of our city, citizens, there's a segment of the population that enjoys coming down Victory Boulevard as they're entering the city and looking off to the left, and it's not developed. So research and development has served that purpose of keeping it, the serenity of the town. And for the past few days, I've played this game of ping pong in my mind as to general commercial versus research and development, and how does the city look coming down that corridor in 20 years or 10 years or whatever. And I may be a little bit ahead of where I'm supposed to be because we're focused on the wording here of the comprehensive plan, but that's kind of where I've been stuck a little bit. So, when it goes GC, general commercial, do we see, fast food? Do we see gas stations? What do we see coming down, entering the city?
I think one thing that's important to note that a mentor taught me was planning also goes along with economic development. They go hand in hand. So by doing that, I agree. I like seeing the geese on the side of the road and the deer off there. I get that 100%. But that is why we need to be cautious, but we need to be forward thinking about what we want here, because the city ultimately has to have businesses to help sustain itself so that tax burden is not solely on the residents. And so a quality investment and how we go about doing that, I know it, I love having the wildlife there. It's important. But is that a walking trail? Is that something to that effect, like we have down the road that we discussed at the retreat? That's important to me, to keep that green space. But also having economic development that will support the city and its long-term growth.
Tom's, the thought I have kind of echoes the two comments we just heard, and realizing there's a lot of stakeholders that need to be persuaded and brought together. But in item 2, the mention of a master plan community, it's a little hard for me to envision anything beyond that big chunk of land without someone just taking a shot at what the future could look like, whether it's reality or not. I don't know if the city could hire a planner or someone to just come in and say, this is what this could potentially look like, knowing that a whole lot of folks would have to get on board. But right now, it's a little difficult for me to see what that big piece of the ground will look like without some sort of a master plan, whether it's real or not.
Right. Yeah, it's again, another point well taken. And I think, these steps we're taking with these amendments, I'll say set the stage for that, but it's setting the stage in, if it is to be developed, if the city wants to be, I won't say aggressive, but purposeful and tactful and proactive with the development. That's not at all what I'm saying is the position, but here's what it should look like should it be developed. And what we took from the retreat was it should be developed cohesively, almost as a parcel, a big master plan, and not developed lot by lot. And I think that was the takeaway, and that's really kind of the purpose of the language and what we took from the comments from City Council and, of course, members of the Planning Commission, that this should be strategic and thought out and not necessarily if developed and when developed, 39 parcels, every owner for himself, here's what's going to happen here, here, and here. Looking at it as really two big chunks. The Big Woods North residential, the Big Woods North commercial, and those two very well could be planned together.
And one thing that was brought up at the retreat I thought was interesting was a community center, a venue in which people go to and they participate in, whether you have live concerts, you can rent it out for a birthday party, or you can do something to that effect with walking trails in the back. Because as Thomas stated, it's wetlands back there, you're going to have, it's above me, wetlands delineation and things of that nature. So really making this the jewel of the community, not chopping it up and something's here and something different there, and making it, people come and see, whatever that would look like. And I think City Council, from what I understand, has that, and I can't speak for them. I know at least one member of City Council would love to have a new community center there. I think that's beneficial with low traffic impact. And, it's important to note, we want to not build it, but build it as a community jewel per se. This is the jewel to the city right here. So we need to do it in a way that makes sense.
I need to hear what the people who own the property have to say. I mean, to me, that's a huge, I still haven't heard what here we are talking about our plans and ideas over their property. I mean, it's a little, got to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, and I think, with the plan moving forward, it's obviously, that's when those folks have a chance to come speak to you all and speak to council. If this moves how the memo mentioned, then next month we would bring some draft language to you all, simply to present to you and the public, have an opportunity for the public that night to come and listen and take in the presentation. They will have an opportunity to address you all. It's not a question and answer session, but it's I'm here to understand the discussion. I'm either a property owner or a private citizen, and hear my thoughts on the north side of Victory. So that opportunity, those opportunities will start next month. And then, of course, the joint work session with City Council, folks can come and they can listen or they can watch. There's an audience for visitors at every one of your meetings, every one of City Council's meetings. And then once we work through refining the language after our joint work session, we start the public hearing process. You will have a public hearing. Planning Commission will have a public hearing. So those opportunities for the public and the private property owners to play a part are coming.
And one of the things I was quite pleased was there was a good showing. I mean, it was a lot of people who attended, who came, who were residents to hear about this, because they had heard about it, and they would come up to us one-on-one, or they'd go up to City Council and they'd address their concerns. One of the things that I heard was traffic. Traffic was important, and they were concerned about that. I know others heard different things, whether that be, whatnot. And I think that I was quite pleased on a Saturday that so many people came out and talked with us and heard what was being presented. And so I think it's a good step forward. But again, this is a plan. It's clarifying language. Step one is clarifying language, talking about the big woods. It's still residential. It exists. It's just a reference in the comp plan. you know, talking about, do we agree it should be like a master plan? You know, that doesn't mean that we don't have the property owners come in there and speak, but a lot, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the things I remember from the retreat were some of those parcels are landlocked, is that correct?
That is correct.
Basically, yes.
So you have inherited land from your family that you have been paying taxes on through the city, but you can't do anything about it. So it may be a welcome opportunity to do so while really looking at the traffic impact that we know is a problem, while fixing a zoning regulation that hasn't worked 30 years ago. So that is what's on the table tonight.
Right, and there are actually not any, and Wally can correct me if I'm wrong, uses that I can imagine that would not trigger the need for a traffic impact analysis in that, I'll use the reference, the Big Woods North commercial portions of property. And our engineer has a ton of latitude in requiring traffic impact analysis. And we are very direct in certain language, how many trips generate one. But again, the engineer has that latitude, and we talk about it here. Even for the R1 portions, that if they're developed, it should be concentrated to an intersection on Victory Boulevard. So that theme will continue.
And that's really what's new for the parcels of Victory. Any access into the parcels of Victory, the commercial part, I'm sorry, I'm so hoarse tonight, would require a traffic impact analysis. But what we don't have now is language that really pulls, the access points. I mean, they basically go anywhere. Of
Right.
course, VDOT would give it, but that's what we're talking about, the control.
So I agree with, like, number one, looking at that, with Legacy building out and will be completed in a year, roughly around 12 months to 16 months or whatever it's going to be in that time frame. I think it does make sense to refer to the Big Woods North as a singular. So that, I do support that. It gets a little wordy, saying, Big Woods North residential or Big Woods North general commercial or whatever. That can be a little bit wordy for some, but I do think that's a good move overall, personally. Number two, I support looking at that as a whole rather than a piecemeal. And definitely hearing from the stakeholders, all stakeholders. And of course, number three, we just talked about and was discussed. That makes sense. Four, I have just a little bit of angst over that, personally, but 1 through 3, I think, are very solid in my eyes.
I would remind you, the planning commission worked on language, I think, last calendar year on the increased buffer requirements. I think we might have done it with the zoning ordinance amendments
We did.
for that side of Victory. The buffer requirements are enhanced really from the edge of the existing HRSD easement, which is
Right.
north of the ditch. And then the buffer is basically taken from there. I think it's 75 feet
75 feet.
was the language. And there's language there that really wouldn't allow even council to reduce the buffer unless they were to go back and change the language. So you all have already taken very conscious steps in making sure that any future development on that north side of Victory, there is a very increased, I'll say, dash enhanced buffer on that side.
just to get clarity for staff, is it okay if we start by one, even though this is not an official vote, but so that staff knows where Planning Commission stands, so they can determine if we have a consensus or not to proceed on their recommendations, or whether not to? Would that be okay with everyone? So for item number 1, and it's the classification of Big Woods North, which will provide guidance for future development of existing commercial parcels on north side of Victory Boulevard, as well as R1. Mr. Hartley?
I agree.
Okay. Okay,
Favor.
Yes, favor.
so you have consensus on that one to proceed with 1. For 2, ensuring that this area is considered as a master plan, an area that is not piecemealed apart, so that we can have the, I like to call it the jewel of the city, taken care of. Number 2, Mr. Hartley?
That's a great idea, but at the same time, I have a hard time without talking to the landowners and all that on what they feel. That's a hard for me to go with,
Okay.
so.
Mr. Armitrout?
I agree with Chaz. I think I'm in favor of it, but with, consent and input from the landowner.
Reisinger?
I believe, I am in favor of it. I think that it's certainly
Same, I'm in favor, but I would like to hear from the property owners and what their desires are, so.
Mr. Yeager?
I'm in favor, but with the caveat that
So you have 3, any traffic into R1 zoned areas of Yorktown Road require a traffic impact analysis. Mr. Hartley?
Absolutely agree.
Mr. Armitrout?
I agree. We also going to add something off of Victory Boulevard?
Have that language?
Yes,
Okay.
off of Victory as well.
Yes,
so-
correct. Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Agreed.
yes,
Okay.
agree.
So you have consensus on that. And for number 4, research and development should be eliminated in favor of general commercial zoning. Mr. Hartley?
I agree.
Mr. Armitrout?
I agree with the increased setback. That helps my angst a little bit, knowing that it'll be far.
This language we can revisit when we get back in the
Yeah,
general
absolutely.
commercial language,
Absolutely.
after this step 1.
Have consensus on that? So that's great. I think that provides staff with what they need to go forward, preparation for our joint city council meeting coming up. And then we can always revisit the one item.
Yeah, so the next step is we will be in front of you with basically a draft of this amended language
Okay.
next month. And we will present that language, which will be the language to go to your joint work session in October, but next month, the first opportunity for the public to come address you on this topic. And not necessarily a public hearing in the sense that we have an advertising requirement, but a town hall-esque or, maybe a open mic night, think of it that way. There's an opportunity next month for folks to come address you as part of this conversation.
And if they can't be here, they can always submit emails to us. They can get their voices heard. One of the things I know I've emailed you all was, putting it out there on the website, Facebook, all of that stuff. However, that's determined to be done by staff because it's ultimately this purview. But it's very important for us to hear so people feel heard because it's their community. We serve the council and them. So that's important to me. Okay, so is that everything for the?
I think it's everything. The second note, nothing in the language that exists currently as far as the zoning ordinance is concerned, which, this guides development. Zoning ordinance dictates, regulates, stipulates. Somebody came to us now and said, hey, I have this parcel of general commercial that fronts Victory. Here's a plan for a permitted use. You can't turn them away.
Right.
And we would not turn them away. This language, though, is just that. It's just the guidance. If this portion is to be developed, if the city, if you think back to the retreat and, Mr. Morgan's comments about, how the willingness of council, to really galvanize development, that would be, okay, we want the stakeholders in the room. We want all owners of all 39 parcels in the room, and we want to figure out how we can make it a parcel and a master plan development. That's basically how Legacy happened. And that is, I think, the theme being, if it is to be developed, north of Victory, residential, commercial, or a combination thereof, it should be done as a master plan, as cohesive development. That does not mean next year we're coming to you with a plan to get everybody in the room.
Yeah.
It just means that the comprehensive plan language would basically encourage that if and when to be developed, it should be done cohesively.
I think that, that makes a lot of sense, and, I would be okay with that. We're not saying that we're doing anything or we're, developing it, but it's how it should be done. It's like a guidebook. It is your guidebook on how to proceed forward, and it's a very good plan. Framing it. Good, or
I think we're good.
you good?
I think we're good. We'll keep in contact with you about how we want to frame the agenda for next month, but probably, we'll have our general audience for visitors, and then we can present on this language and have an audience for visitors specific to the north of Victory.
Very good. Anybody have anything else? Thank you for coming out tonight. Y'all have a good rest of your evening. Meeting's adjourned.